Hey, what's up guys? This is Shane Smith. I'm the owner of Genesis Offroad. This is our installation video for the Gen 3 dual battery system for the 2016 through 2023 year models Toyota Tacoma. Now, if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume you're already familiar with the Gen 3 dual battery kit, but if you need a little more background info, we do have a detailed overview that explains how the Gen 3 system works and all of its benefits and limitations. So if you want to see that and learn a little bit more about this, you can check out the link in the description below. Now, I always like to stress, if you guys are following along with the video here and you run into any questions, or if I skip any steps or something doesn't look like your truck, please stop and give us a call. We'd be more than happy to help you out. But I'm going to walk you through this step by step. Now, try not to skip ahead. There's several tips that I'm going to give you along the way to get this new tray positioned in here exactly right, so you can get it done right the first time. So with that being said, let's just jump right in and let's get to it. Okay, let's start with getting this battery out of here. Let's pull our cover back and loosen this up with a 10 millimeter. And take the factory bracket off with another 10 millimeter. Don't need this little plastic battery tray here. Okay, before we get started, just take a second and kind of clean this area up. If you got any leaves and bugs and dirt down in here, just wipe off this stock battery shelf because we're going to be working in here and drilling. So let's start with a clean surface. And let's look at what we're dealing with here. So with the factory battery here, when we turn two batteries sideways in here, it's going to fill up this space really quickly. So as we get going through here, I'll show you some areas to watch out for. But before we drop our tray in here, we're going to move some of these factory wire harness clips down in here to make room for the legs on the tray. So let's go ahead and pop those loose now. All right, let's get these pulled out of here with our little pry tool. Okay, also, if you have any aftermarket wiring in here, go ahead and move your aftermarket wires out of our way completely, and then we'll come back at the end and reroute your wires back to the bus bars. So this truck has a set of marker lights on the front bumper, so we're just going to remove this ground wire right here. And we'll put that back on there. Okay, with all these wires out of our way, we're ready to set the tray in for the first time and take a look. We'll drop our tray right down in here. Okay, now let's talk about the space that we're working with this larger battery tray in here. I'm going to move this ground wire up a little bit so it's not getting pinched. And I'm going to scoot the tray as far over this way as I can. Okay, we're going to want to get this tray positioned as far towards the fender and as far back this way as possible. So just take a second and kind of shift this around a little bit. And you're going to want to watch out for your oil fill neck over here. There's some hoses coming off the radiator on the front here. And you should barely clear the radiator core support up front. Now, for this wire harness by the fender, you might be able to kind of push this wire harness back towards the fender, back and down a little bit so the tray can slide this way some more. Now, what we're watching for here is the holes in the bottom of the tray where they line up with this stock battery mounting shelf. We're going to be very, very close to the edge where that tray kind of rolls down and drops down lower. So just be aware of that. We want to make sure that the tray is, the holes that for the mounting points are on a completely flat surface and not hanging over the edge of that curved edge of the battery tray. Now let's go ahead and drop our batteries in here and we'll do some fine tuning on the tray placement. Let's drop in our accessory battery first. And we want that battery all the way towards the fender. So right now I can see that I'm bumping against the back side of the headlight. So let's take the tray and twist it a little bit. this way. There we go. Now the battery can move over some more. All right, and take a look at your holes on the front side here. I can see that right now I'm still on that flat sheet metal and I'm still clearing my oil fill neck. If you need to move this out of the way and adjust that wire harness back towards the fender a little bit more, you can do that now. My hoses over here still look good. We're not rubbing against the radiator core support, but this battery is going to be all the way up against this bracket up here in the corner, so that's fine. All right, now let's drop in our cranking battery. And you want to make sure that this is sitting completely flat to the bottom. There we go. Now with both batteries in there, let's take another look around. I've got clearance to my oil fill neck. My fuse box looks good. I'm all the way up against this bracket here. I'm clearing right here against this front bracket. My hoses look good. Okay, once you feel good about your battery placement, again, you can shift this thing around a little bit if you need to. Once everything is looking good, now we want to carefully pull one battery out and mark the front holes. Then we'll carefully pull the second battery out and mark those other holes. But we want to make sure that we do not move this tray when we take the batteries out. So one thing I like to do is just make a little index mark. So I'm going to put a little pin mark on my tray right here and then transfer that right over here to this bracket, to that sheet metal. And that's just going to help me tell if the battery shifts when I pull these batteries out. Now, if you have an Odyssey battery, it probably comes with a little plastic handle, or if you had the full throttles, you probably have little rope handles to lift this out. Or it might be helpful to get a friend to help hold this side down while you lift one battery out of there. But just whatever you need to do, make sure your tray does not shift while you pull the batteries out. Okay, I'm going to check my alignment mark. I think I moved just a little bit. Now I'm going to take a look at the sheet metal down here, and I think I'm still on a completely flat surface. So I think I'm looking good, but I'm going to keep this alignment mark right here. I think I'm going to try to scoot it back just a little. Yeah, there we go. That looks a little bit better. So just take your time, get the tray adjusted exactly where it needs so that when you put the rib nuts in, the head of the rib nut is on completely flat sheet metal. And once you're happy with the clearance all the way around, go ahead and take a silver Sharpie and let's mark these holes. Then I'm going to slide this battery over just a little bit so it's a little bit easier to pull out. Again, with the batteries out, check your little alignment mark. I think I shifted just a little. And you can check where you're marked with the Sharpie. Make sure that's still perfectly centered on your holes. Then take a close look at your other holes back here, and I can tell that that's completely on the flat sheet metal surface right here. So I'll go ahead and mark these. And don't forget to mark the holes at the front, those longer legs that go down to the lower shelf. I'm going to move this little wire harness here out of my way so I can see that leg. And then reach our Sharpie down in here to mark those. And let's take the tray back out and we'll drill those holes out. Okay, before we drill these holes, let me give you just a couple more quick tips. If you're running into some clearance issues, if your tray is bumping against this little bracket that uses the factory hold down bracket, you can take a screwdriver and put in here and just kind of pry this back just a little bit. If you need a little extra clearance, the tray should clear that, but that's an easy way to get that out of the way. Also, we kept talking about how close the tray is to this oil fill neck. One tip that you can do if you're concerned about that, you can get the tray installed in here without affecting the oil fill neck. But if you're concerned about it, an easy thing you can do is just take the nuts off of the engine block right here and spin this thing around 180 degrees and put it right back on. So let me show you what that looks like. So let's get a 10mm socket and remove these T-nuts right down here. Now this should just lift right off of here. And we'll spin it right around the other direction, and you can kind of move some of these wires out of your way a little bit. Make sure that would sit nice and flush. Now you can see you still have an angle. The oil is still going to flow down. That neck is a little bit lower over here. So if you want to do it that way, you would probably want to use a funnel for filling up your oil. The other option for dealing with this, the Lexus vehicles have a shorter oil fill neck. That's much shorter than this one, so you'll have a lot more clearance around that one, and that's a direct fit with the Toyota vehicles. So we'll put the part number for that Lexus oil fill neck in the description below. So let's just put these nuts right back on. And I'm going to come back with a handheld ratchet just to make sure that's nice and snug, but not over tight. Okay, now we're ready to drill out these 6 holes for the nutserts. So we're going to use a center punch tool and get that drilled out. Okay, now we're going to use a 25/64 inch drill bit to drill these holes out, to drop the nutserts in there. If you don't have a 25/64 inch drill bit, please just stop right now, go to the hardware store and grab one. You can get these at Lowe's or Home Depot for a few bucks. Don't use an undersized or an oversized drill bit because you're not going to get the bite on the nutsert when you install that properly. So you really need to get the right size drill bit. Okay, let's drill these out. Let's get all these shavings cleaned up. Now, if you don't run your drill bit too fast, you should get some nice clean holes. But if you get a little bit of burrs on around the edges here, just take a second and try to pick those little burr edges off, because you want the edge of the nutserts to sit right down in there and not be raised up by some little metal burrs. If you have a countersink drill bit, this works pretty good for cleaning up around the edges. Just make sure you don't make the hole any larger. Now I'm going to use a little paint pen, a little touch-up pen to touch up that bare sheet metal from the holes we drilled. Okay, if you're not too familiar with these rivet nuts, let me show you exactly what's happening here. So this is a blind hole fastener. So when this drops in the hole and you tighten it down with an install tool, it's going to collapse and create another flange on this backside. So it's going to bite against the top of the metal and against the bottom of the metal. So to install these, you got a couple of options. Number one, inside your hardware baggie, you're going to have this gold grade 8 bolt, a washer, and a slightly oversized flange nut. So if you stack those up together like this, where the bolt will go right through that nut, and then when you drop that in place, when you tighten this bolt down on here like this, this nut is just going to kind of help hold the top of the nutsert steady. And then when you tighten the bolt down, as you tighten it down, it's going to compress and it's going to create that little flange on the backside. So to hold this in place, you want to hold that nut down there with a 1/2 inch wrench. So you can see here, this one that I have is kind of a thicker wrench. So when you put that on there, you'll notice that it kind of raises that washer up a little bit. So you want it positioned like this. And you see how the bolt is kind of raised up a little bit off the top of that nut there. So if possible, if you're going to do it by hand like this, I'd recommend using a thinner 1/2 inch wrench like this one. And that way, when you put that on there, you see the washer sits down closer to the head of your wrench. Now, when you tighten this bolt down with a 7/16 inch socket, as you're tightening it, the wrench is just helping to hold everything still. The bolt is going to spin on top of the washer, and it's going to cause when the bolt goes down, it's going to cause the riv nut to collapse up. So you'll just tighten this down, you'll hold the wrench and tighten it. And at first, it's going to be difficult to get that started. and then you'll feel it be a little bit easier as it's compressing, and then it'll get really difficult again when you feel it bottom out. And when you feel it bottom out, when you're turning the wrench, you can tell that it's completely compressed up against the bottom side. It'll get to where you can't turn it any further. So you want this thing very nice and snug where it's biting on the top and bottom of this battery shelf sheet metal. It's going to be sandwiched in between there. But if you don't get this tightened all the way down, or if the nutsert is slightly crooked and it gets deformed as it's compressing, it's going to cause you some problems, okay? So if you're not comfortable with reaching down in here and getting this installed by hand, you can use a professional grade nutsert installation tool, or if you're just not comfortable with any of that, I'd recommend having a professional shop install this for you. Okay, so this is a nutsert installation tool. This one is made by Marson. So the way this works is when you open this up, you'll thread your nutsert on the top of this die here, and they make these dies with different thread pitches. Now when you insert this down into the hole, and when you squeeze the handles, it's going to compress that for you. So you can install these in about 10 seconds with a tool like this. So I'm going to assume if you have a tool like this, you probably already know how to use it. It is important to get this adjusted properly for the depth of the nutsert that you're using. So if you want to use this, you're on your own to know how to use it right. Okay, so let me show you both ways of doing this. So again, you've got your large oversized flange nut, then the washer, and then the grade 8 bolt. So you can take that assembly and just thread it into your nutsert. Go ahead and put your wrench on the bottom. That's a 1/2 inch. And then screw your bolt on down until it's hand tight. Then use one hand to hold that wrench steady, and then use your other hand with a 7/16 to tighten that all the way down until it bottoms out. So it's a little bit awkward working down in here. You can do it. Take your time. Make sure you get that installed in there nice and flat. If you don't tilt your ratchet where the nutsert is slightly off center. So make sure your ratchet is nice, straight up and down to get that installed properly. This one over here in the corner is going to be pretty difficult to get to, so we'll have to do that one by hand. Okay, once you're done, I want you to inspect every one of these nutserts and make sure the top flange is nice and flat against the sheet metal. We're not over the edge where it rounds down the corner here. And take a look at the threads. You need the threads to be pointing straight down. If you got your ratchet in there a little bit crooked and the nutsert got installed improperly, if the threads look like they're kind of going at an angle, or if this top little flange here is deformed, or if you've got any burrs that are sticking out from underneath the head there, it's gonna cause you problems down the road. I promise you. It's easier to stop now and deal with that right now rather than come back and dealing with it later. So if you got one in there crooked or damaged in any way, go ahead and stop and take your 25/64 drill bit and just drill out that head of the nutsert and put a new one in there. You can get those from the hardware store. It's a 1/4 inch by 20 thread pitch nutsert. All right, we're past the hard part. Now let's drop our tray back down in here and get it bolted down. Use our stainless bolt and washer and just get those started. Okay, I'm going to turn down the torque on my drill driver here. I don't want to over tighten these bolts. We'll just run them down. Now I just want to come back and hand tighten these. I don't want to over tighten them. I want them to be very snug, but don't run it down so tight that you start to damage that nutsert. If you over tighten it, you can risk having that nutsert start to spin in the hole, and then it makes it really difficult to get the bolt out. So let's just hand tighten these. Okay, and the tray's in there and bolted down, and I can tell it still lines up with our little mark right here. So let's go ahead and get the batteries in. All right, here's our accessory battery. Bumping my headlight just a little bit, so I should be able to, there we go. All right, now we're ready for the top. Okay, let's drop the GEN3 Power Hub down in here. This is going to go in with the Lionhead logo looking towards the front of the vehicle, like this. And let's get that bolted down. And when you're attaching these bolts here, you may notice there's a gap between the Power Hub and the battery tray. That's actually on purpose. That's because some other brands of batteries are not the same size. They don't really follow the industry standard sizes for batteries. So we did that to accommodate some of those smaller batteries. So that's on purpose. Okay, now you'll also notice that the lid here is slotted, and that's just to give you a little bit of adjustability. So if the cover for the bus bars is bumping over here by the fender, you can slide that over that way just a little bit if you need to. So let's go ahead and get that tightened down. Okay, let's work on our cable connections. Let's start with the positive over here on the accessory battery. Get that connected and tighten that down with a 13mm or a 1/2 inch. And now over here, we're going to reattach our factory negative post clamp onto the accessory battery. Let's move this wire out of the way for a second. And this is going to get attached under this little nut on the post clamp. Okay, so it's going to line up about like that. So just take that off. It'll be a little bit easier to get that nut back on there. Okay, once we got that looking in a good position, we'll go ahead and tighten that down with a 10mm. Now let's do the factory positive post clamp. We'll bring that back up top here. Now let's take off this 12mm nut off the factory positive post clamp for attaching our wire. Put that nut right back on. And last up is our negative over here on the cranking battery. And don't forget, if you remove the factory body ground wire earlier to get a little room for putting the batteries down in there, don't forget to hook this back up. Okay, now all of our wiring is done. Now I want you to go through and just double check all 4 of your post clamps. Make sure they're all very tight. If you can move any of the post clamps on the battery post, even a little bit, it can lead to all sorts of bizarre electrical gremlins that are kind of a pain to try to chase down. It usually just comes down to a loose wire somewhere. Okay, now if you have any aftermarket electrical accessories that you need to get reconnected, just bring those up top here. We'll lift the cover up over the bus bars. And let's see where this one here is for our little marker lights on the front grille. So it looks like it'll line up pretty good with this front stud on the bus bars. You can see on the bus bars, you've got 3 different styles of these tall studs for heavier gauge wire. And you also have these smaller number 10 screws for your smaller ring terminals. So that gives you lots of options for where you want to hook up your wires. So we're going to pull this off of here with our 1/2 inch. All right, we'll get our ground wire put on right there. And if this washer for the bus bars is a little bit too big for your ring terminal, don't sweat it. You can leave that off. We'll just put our lock washer on there and our nut. And we'll kind of groom that out here to the side like this. Tighten that back down. So for our truck, those marker lights use a fuse tap to tap into ignition hot power so that we don't have a positive wire coming over to the bus bar right now. So just go ahead and get all your aftermarket electrical accessory wires groomed through here and connected up to your bus bars. Okay, so we're all done with the install for the Gen 3 system. Now, if you're also installing the G screen, that's going to plug into the port right back here on the backside, and on the Tacoma, you can go through this large rubber grommet on the firewall right down here. It'll come out by your foot close to the brake pedal, and there's a couple of options for putting that on the dash. We have some detailed install videos for the G screen that you can watch to see how to hook all that up. But if I missed anything, if you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always here to help. We also have lots of helpful tech tip videos and a podcast series on our YouTube channel that helps you get the most out of your Genesis Off-Road products. So thanks for watching.